Okay, everyone. Thank you for joining. This is going to be class number 3 in the class called Under the Shade of the Rock, in which we are studying a passage of the Zohar with the interpretation of Rabbi Yitzchak Schneerson from the book Lekutei Levi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak Schneerson's Yahrzeit is going to be in 2 days on Chaf this is the Lubavitcher Rebbe's father, who was a master genius Kabbalist. Master in general in Torah, but his knowledge of Kabbalah, mysticism, and his complete command of the Zohar and all the writings of the Arizal, and his sheer brilliance of uncovering the deeper meanings hidden in the nuances of the Zohar is one of a kind. It's absolutely stunning. So we began learning last week in honor of his Yahrzeit coming up. Last week we had 2 classes, which we studied a passage of the Zohar and Pashas Pinchas with his interpretation. The story related to, you can listen to class 1 and class 2 if you really want to enjoy and find meaning in this class, because this is going to be the last class, Bezrat Hashem, in which we conclude the piece. The story was over there that Reb Chia, the Zohar relates the story. Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Lazar were together. They sat down under the shade, and Rabbi Lazar, who said, how delightful and how joyful is the shade of the rock. They were in the desert. They found some relief for the heat. Rabbi Lazar says how beautiful and how joyful is the shade of the rock. And Rabbi Chia asks him the question. He says, I want to stand, meaning I want to know the secret, on the 21 days that are from Rosh Hashanah until Shmini Atzeres. Shmini Atzeres is the 22nd day. So I want to know the secret of these 21 days from the beginning of the year, Rosh Hashanah, going through Yom Kippur and Sukkot, and then comes the great holiday of Shmini Atzeres. What is the secret of it? And Rabbi Lazar goes on to explain to him that, brings a verse which says, Chasaf Hashem ezro akacho, God has revealed his holy arm. And based on that teaching, on that verse, he goes on to explain how there is a sequence of energies that take place during this whole period of time, which is the high holiday period of the year, the highest, most intense period of time coming up to us, Abba Aleinu L'Tova, up to New Year that's coming our way. By the way, after the 15th of Av, there is already a custom to start saying Ksiva v'chasima tova, that we should have a blessed year. It's 45 days already before the new year. So we're already blessing each other for a good, sweet, beautiful, healthy new year. So it's good to be learning this, where we're actually learning about the upcoming holidays. What do they mean? So the general idea that he explains in the Zohar is that Hashem, first, God extends to us his left hand. The left hand of God, as we discussed, is the Gevura, the might, the strength. And therefore, Rosh Hashanah, God appears to us as a mighty judge and a powerful ruler, a king over the world. We tremble in awe. And this energy continues throughout the entire 10 days. And during this time, we do a lot of tshuva, we do a lot of soul searching, and we try to redevote ourselves and rededicate ourselves to being good Jews and being good subjects to God. Then comes the day after Rosh Hashanah, the day after Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Suddenly the energy switches dramatically, and suddenly we start feeling a tremendous love emanating from God. And corresponding to that, in reciprocation of that, our mood, we experience a mood swing, and instead of us being in a state of fear and awe, we kind of switch gears into a fear of love and joy, and we feel God's embrace. And that's what the Sukkah is. It's God embracing us and hugging us. And this is an 11-day period from right after Yom Kippur. It starts already. The chesed, the kindness, starts to flow, which is hinted to in the verse, V'yaminoi tchapkeni, Hashem's right hand embraces me. That's after the left hand is beneath my head. The right hand embraces us, and that lasts till the end of the 7 days of Sukkot. So it's 4 plus 7, an 11-day period of kindness. And these are us resting in between God's 2 hands, 2 arms. The left hand, which is the first few days, the right hand, which is the latter part of the holiday season. But then comes the deepest moment, and that is Shmini Atzeres. Shmini Atzeres is not the right hand, not the left hand, but a pure union, body to body. It is the concept of an intimacy between God and Israel and the Jewish people. And that's related to the energy of Yesod. Yesod is the intimacy, that's where the bonding happens. And that's why we learned that that day is connected to Joseph. The energy of Joseph, because Joseph is the one, Yosef HaTzadik, he is the one who personifies the element of Yesod. And so this is the idea, and that's why it's a time when God sends everybody away, because it's a time for privacy. God is alone with his beloved. And that's that unique, special holiday in which we conclude the entire period. So we learned earlier the deeper reason, how he matches up. That's what the Zohar kind of explains. Most people reading the Zohar, no one pays attention to the fact that the Zohar tells you that this was once a walk in the desert, and they sat down under a rock, and Reb Chia was the one who asked the question, Rebbe Lazar was the one who gave the response. And we said, and Rebbe Lazar didn't initially give the response. First, Rebbe Lazar says, well, didn't we speak about that once? And Reb Chia says, yeah, I did hear. I heard something really, really special from Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, the holy exalted lamp. But I forgot. It didn't settle with, not even forgot, it didn't settle with me. So therefore, I want to kind of hash it out. Can you help me? And then Rebbe Lazar, who probably is the Rebbe Lazar, this Rebbe Lazar is probably the son of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, goes and explains the whole thing that we just kind of said in a nutshell, what we just explained. So, as the style of Reb Leivik, where he explains that nothing is random. Everything is with absolute cosmic precision. Every little detail of the Zohar over here. So first of all, why was it Reb Chia asking the question? So he explained that Reb Chia is the energy of Yosef. He is the same power of Joseph. He is the energy of Yesod. That's what he personifies. That's why his name starts with a ches. And the whole power of Yesod comes from the 8th king. First are 7 kings who collapsed, the 7 ancient kings of Edom. If you want to know more about this, listen to the first class. So there were 7 kings of Edom that collapsed. The 8th king is the only one who didn't die, who at least the Torah doesn't mention that he died. And that's the source of the world of Tikkun. And Yosef, and that king is called Hadar. And Joseph, his spiritual energy comes from that lofty 8th king. And that's why Yosef was so good looking, because Hadar means beauty. And beauty really represents symmetry and unification, which is the fixing and the healing of that extreme world where the forces did not get along with each other. Everything was extreme. So beauty comes when there is harmony and there is peace and there is unification. So that's where Yosef derives his energy from. And that's why Chia and Chai, he explained that the Yesod element in the person is called the living part of the person. The part that's most alive in the human being, where you see life most, is in the Yesod element of the human being, which is in the reproductive element of the person. That's where you see life. And that's what the word Chia means. Chia means life. And that's why he personifies that energy. And that's why he says, I want to know what these days mean, because he wants to kind of understand his own energy of his own soul. And you see it he explained how the name Chia, the ches is the first letter, but how the ches, which is the Yesod, is built on Yud Aleph, which is 21, because the Yesod comes into play on the 22nd day after 21 days. From Rosh Hashanah until Hoshana Rabbah, those are the 21 days, which only after you have the whole interlude, you have kind of this warm-up from first the left hand and then the right hand, then we can move to the next state of the bond, where we experience the perfect union and the perfect intimacy between God and Israel, which happens only after we have this getting close period. Like in a physical union, there is also a period before a union which requires a closeness between the man and the woman. So here as well, there is a closeness that kind of facilitates and brings about, sets that mood and sets that state to allow for the deepest intimacy to take place. So we see it in the name Chia, he explains. And the name Chia, because Yud and Aleph is 21, but not only that, it's perfectly divided. Yud is 10, so it's the 10. Again, this is a brilliant idea of the Rebbe's father. The yud of the word Chia is the 10 days of the left hand. That's from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. The yud aleph is the 11 days of kindness, which is from, as we said earlier, the day after Yom Kippur until the last day of Sukkot. There's 11 days, and only then comes the Ches. But why is the Ches the first in the word, even though it comes last? Because Chia is mainly the Ches. He's Yesod. It's just that you can't come to the Yesod until you first have these two energies of the left and the right. Then he went on to explain why he asked the question primarily from Reb Elazar. And he explained the relationship that Elazar is the energy of Chachma, and how Yesod, Yesod is built a lot on Chachma energy. Remember we said that Yosef was an orphan from his mom, not from his dad, which tells you that the mom is called Bina, and the father is Chachma. And Joseph didn't have a mother to raise him, at least. He had a mother, but he didn't have a mother to raise him, is because the energies of Bina don't lower themselves down all the way to raise and to mature the Yesod. The Yesod of the male gets developed primarily from Chachma, from the father, not from the mother. And that's the reason why Joseph, who personifies in his physical life, personifies the energy of Yesod, didn't have a mother to raise him, only a father. So that's the reason why Chia also turns to his father. Who is his father? Even though he wasn't physically his father, but spiritually he was his father. Elazar was spiritually the father of Rabbi Chia. We'll soon see an incredible, all the way at the end of the class today, we'll see an incredible connection to someone else whose father's name was Elazar, who's the same energy. We'll soon see. You can guess from which parsha this is, in which parsha of the Zohar this is discussed. That too is connected. It says it over here in the book, the copy. So that's why he asks Elazar, and why he tried. First, he heard it from Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, because Reb Shimon Bar Yochai is the level of Das. Again, I'm just reviewing quickly so you get a little refresher. This is not meant to understand what I'm saying. Unless you heard the earlier class, you won't. Most probably won't understand this. So, but again, I'm just giving a refresher for those who were with me. So, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai is the Das, and Yesod does receive from Das. That's his primarily channel, because Yesod is in the middle of the body, and the Das is also in the middle of the body, goes all the way up to Keser. As we discussed, how the reaction for Yesod to be able to perform, to be able to have to be able to play its role in an intimacy, it must have the focus, it must have the Das. So first, it's stimulated by Yesod. Reb Chia heard something from Reb Shimon, but since this is a very high level of Das, it's higher than understanding. This is the Das, not the lower Das we learned, the higher Das that's above Chachma and Bina. There's two levels of Dat. There's a lower Das, which is below the intellect. There's a higher Das that's above the intellect. And this is the Das that's above the intellect. And that's why it just kind of washed over Reb Chia's head. He says, I don't get it. So he asks Reb Elazar, who's a lower level. He's already Chachma. Chachma is the beginning of grasping something. It's the beginning of vessels. It's the beginning of an orpnimi. It's the beginning of an internalized light. So he asks Reb Elazar to explain it to him. And Reb Elazar does do the explanation. Now, where did Reb Elazar share this whole answer of the dynamics of these 21 days? He does it in the desert. Now, why he does it in the desert, we're going to learn today in about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. But before that, in the desert, he sat down next to a rock, and he was enjoying the shade coming from the rock. Now, the rock was called a Tanra in Aramaic. Tanra is a rock, big rock, a desert rock. So they're sitting, and he's enjoying that. So he explained exactly why this teaching was done in the shade of a rock. So he explained because the rock and the shade represent these two energies that he's actually going to explain that precede the union. We said earlier that there first has to be an energy of God's left hand and then of God's right hand. So he explains that the rock is, people say, I got stuck between a rock and a hard place. The rock is a hard place. So the rock represents Gevura. So the rock is really a stone, and a rock has the energy from the left side of God. And therefore, and then he goes on to explain all the details, how the word tener, which is the root of the word tanra, tener is actually the same numeric value as 3 times Elokim. 258. It's actually 10 is Gematria 259, but remember in Gematria it's 258. Same as we spoke, Garon. Garon is the neck, which is the most stiffest place in the person. You get a stiff neck. Garon is the neck where the Gevura, the Tzimtzum, is very, very strong. And so 3 times Elokim is this rock. And he explains how Shofar, which is Rosh Hashanah, also has 3 times Elokim. Because if you remember, in the last class we said that the first thing that has to happen in Rosh Hashanah is that God has to build the Malchut. God builds up, he reconstructs his attribute of kingship. And the reconstruction, which means physically it was the first Rosh Hashanah that God created Eve. He created Chava. Chava, even though she was a physical human woman, her spiritual energy is the energy of the Shekhinah, which is the energy of Malchut, which is the energy of God's kingship, which is primarily built on Gevura. And that's why we learned that in order to create her, in order to make her, God put Adam to sleep. First anesthesia that was given. The first person that was put down with into God acted an anesthesiologist and put him to sleep. The word that it uses is tardema. And if you remember, he said tardema is the exact numeric value of 3 times Gevura. Because what happens during the tardema is God is building the rib of Adam. He's turning it into a full-fledged structure of the woman, which means Hashem is taking the potential kingship and developing, expanding, building the kingship. Now, to build the kingship, you build it on Gevura. Since there are 3 elements of Gevura, one element of Gevura is the Gevura that's in Bina. The other element of Gevura is the Bina, means is an understanding, which is on the left side, the intellectual Gevura. There is an emotional Gevura, which is the left hand, which is the Gevura, which he refers to as Pachad Yitzchak, the dread of Yitzchak, dread of Isaac. And there's the last Gevura, which is the Gevura of Malchut. Malchus itself has her own Gevura. So there's 3 levels of Gevura. She needs to be structured with these 3 levels of Gevura. That's the reason Tardema is 3 times Gevura. That corresponds with the name Elokim, which Elokim is 86, which Elokim is Gevura. It's the name of God of Gevura. And that's the reason Tanra, which is this rock, is also the numeric value of 3 times Elokim, which is, and remember we learned that the shofar, which is the main instrument of Rosh Hashanah, in which we develop the Malchut, we blow the shofar to announce the kingship. He explained that in shofar there is also 3 times Elokim. How? Shin, we said, is the name Elokim with the miloi. When you write out Elokim with the hidden letters and you fill those letters with a yud, it's called Elokim b'milui yudin. Now, what does it mean? You can't fill all the letters with a yud, but the hey of Elokim is filled with a yud. Then the number of that is 300. That's the shin of the shofar. Then the middle 2 letters of the shofar is pei vav, which pei vav is 86. No, 86 is the numeric value of the name Elokim. That's the second Elokim. And if you remember, the reish of Elokim is when you do the name of Elokim biribua. Biribua means you add up the letters by creating a how do you call it, a pyramid. It's almost like a pyramid. You put the first letter of Aleph, and then you make Aleph Lamed, and then you make Aleph Lamed Hey, and then Aleph Lamed Hey Yud, and then Aleph Lamed Hey Yud Mem, and then you add all these numbers together. For whatever reason that this is part of the system of Gematria called Ribua, and what that does, and that gives you that number is going to be 200. So it comes out that the word shofar is 3 times Elokim. And that's exactly the same like the rock in the desert. Now, the desert in general is a place full of Gevura. But the rock in the desert is intense Gevura. Got it? Yeah? Rock, fine. Then he also explained how shofar in general is connected to the garon. You blow through the garon. He also explained how out of the shofar comes 7 hevels, 7 havolim, the 7 breaths, which is mentioned the beginning of Kehelas. It's mentioned 7 times hevel. So we learned that Malchut is built with these 7 hevels, 7 havolim. And 7 times hevel. 7 times the word hevel. Hevel is 37. When you make 37 times 7, if you remember, you get 259, which is the same like the rock. He's connecting the rock so many ways to the shofar. Now it's interesting that in today's Tanya, we learned about the 7 hevalim. That God creates the physical world with the 7 even today's Tanya or yesterday's Tanya. It explains that the physical world is created with just the hevel, just the breath of the letters, just the physicality of the letters, not the spiritual energy of the letters. Because the higher worlds, the spiritual world, there's more godly revelation, is created more with the content of the letters. But the physical world, God has to reduce the energy so much, it's only the breath of the letter, which is the physical element of God's letters, but not the same idea in Tanya. And that's what Binyan HaMalchut is. When God builds the Malchut, it's through intense constriction and limitation. Because in Malchut, God has to limit his light to leave room for a world to exist and not overtake the world with his omnipresence and and all-pervading reality. So God has to hide himself, contract. The main process, according to the Kabbalists of mystics, in creation, is an incredible self-restraining exercise of restraining more and more and more and more and hiding and hiding and hiding, and that's the Gevura of Malchus. That's why the world is created, only from Hevel. Okay. Now and there's a lot more, which I'm not going to go into, that we discussed. So this is the idea of the rock. But what happens from the rock? Oh, now one more important point, because this we are going to reconnect to in today's class. These 3 gevurot that are delivered to Malchut, the 3 Elokims through the shofar, the three gevurot that we said make up the word tardema, which means asleep, which is where what's her name, Chava, was created from. Malchus is created from. These 3 gevurot we learned is hinted to in the verse that he opens up. Rebbe Lazar opens up with. He says, "Chasaf Hashem ezroa kacho." God extended his left arm. He revealed his left arm. His arm. It doesn't say which arm. It says, Chasaf Hashem ezroa kacho, his holy arm. But the Zohar interprets it as the left hand of God. Because the Zohar immediately brings the other verse, Smolo tachas l'reishi. His left hand is beneath my hand. So the Zohar goes on to say, oh wait. So the Rebbe, the Rebbe's father says, in this word, that God reveals what? Es zroa kacho is hinted to these 3 gevurot that build the Malchut, that are exercised or that are activated from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. It's that time when these gevurot are very strong. That's why it's a days of awe. It's hinted to in Es Zroya Kachay. Why? Es, he says, Aleph through Taf, which are letters, which represents all of the alphabet, Aleph through, which is the world of Malchut. Malchut is a world of speech, the world of letters. So Es is the Gevura of Malchus. Now, where do you see it's the Gevura? Maybe it's just Malchus. Where do you see it's the Gevura of Malchus? So he gives a really cool idea. He says Es is Aleph, Taf. Aleph can also be read as Elef, which Elef means 1,000. Aleph means 1. It's a letter. The numeric value of the Aleph is 1. But you can also read Aleph as Elef. Taf is 400. So Aleph Taf is 1,400. Now 1,400 is 5 times 280. If you make 280 times 5, then you get 1,400. which is why 5 times 280? Because in the letters itself, in the world of Aleph Bet, which letters represent Gevura, the real Gevura? Menatzpach, Mem, Nun, Tzadik, Pei, Chav. These are the letters you use at the end. They have double letters, and you only use those double letters when you end the word. And those are the real source of, that's the Gevura in Malchus. So it's 5 letters. Since now Mem, Nun, Tzadik, Pei, Chav, if you also have numbers to it, Mem is 40, Nun is 50. So when you add up the 5 Menatzbach letters, you get 280. Why do you do them 5 times? Because each one has all the other 5s in it. So it's 5 times Menatzbach. So the sum totality of the Gevura of the letters of Malchus, that means the Malchus has other Gevuros, but some Gevurot she gets from the higher sources. Her own Gevura are the 5 Menatzbachs. That's her Gevura. So that's the word S. Zeroa is an arm. Which arm is the left arm? Is the Zeroa. So that's the Gevura she receives from her husband, from the Ze'er Anpin, the Zeroa. Kacho, the Holy One, is referring to Bina. And that's and he needed a little to explain that, because usually we say that Kedusha is in Chachma, but he explained that the Zohar says that sometimes there is the idea of Kedusha and Bina as well. So Es, Zeroa, Kacho are 3 levels of Gevura that are actively building, that are being downloaded into Malchut during that time. Now, regarding these three Gevurot, the Zohar, meaning powers of stringency, of strictness or intense, regarding these 3 things, the Zohar says that, the Zohar goes on to explain that the left hand of God, this is the hand where God brings salvation. This is the hand where God does revenge from, punishes the wicked. And this is the hand from where redemption comes from. 3 things: Yeshuais, Nukmin, which means revenge, and Purkan. Purkan means redemption. So he explains that these are these 3. Malchut is called, the Gevura of Malchus is called Yeshua. Like it says, Kais Yeshua is Esa. The cup, Malchus is a cup. Kais Yeshua is the cup of Yeshua Esa. David HaMelech, who is Malchut, he personifies kingship, King David. He says, Kos Yeshua is Esa, the cup of salvation I pick up. The Gevuras of Malchus are called Yeshuais. The Gevura of Yitzchak, of Ze'er Anpin, from there is where Nekama comes from. Revenge comes to the wicked. May God pour it out on Hamas right now. And then finally, redemption comes from Bina. As we know, Bina is the place of where Cherus comes from. All freedom comes from Bina. Yovel, the Jubilee year, is a time of liberation, of freedom. We blow a shofar of freedom. 50th year, 50 is Bina, 50 gates of Bina. We know it mentions 50 times Yetziat Mitzrayim in the Torah. Because all the exit, everything is Bina. Bina, from Bina comes freedom. It's called Alma Dechera. It's called the world of liberation and of freedom. So that's what it means, these 3 Gevuras. This is all the rock. The rock. But they were sitting under the shade of the rock. So what is the shade of the rock? The rock itself produces shade. What's the shade? Shade is the opposite of Gevura. The shade is what creates protection from the sun. Sun is Gevura. The sunlight is very intense. The heat of the sun, the burning of the sun. You get under the shade, get protection of it. The shade, that's the kindness. That's chesed. When we are, but it's not just kindness, it's the kindness of this holiday of Sukkot. Because we know that the main mitzvah of Sukkah is to sit in the shade of the Sukkah that protects you from the heat of the sun. It's the shade of the sukkah. So here they're sitting in the shade of the rock. But hold it, you're sitting in the shade of the sukkah, which is made up of schach. And here he was sitting under the shade of the rock. The answer is the schach, which is the shade in which we create our sukkah, which was schach are the branches that we put on our booths to give us shade. The word schach indicates that it's actually coming from the entire Rosh Hashanah experience. The intense gevura of Rosh Hashanah, its might, its severity flips over from the tshuva, from the repentance that comes from God being strict with us, comes the enormous kindness and love and embrace and hug of Sukkot. Like he says, schach is the exact numeric value of 100. Samach is 60, chaf and chaf is 20 and 20. It's 100. It's the same exact gematria it's same like the 100 sounds of a shofar. On Rosh Hashanah, we blow 100 sounds. And not only that, the 100 sounds are mostly the sound of a tekiah. Tekiah is a simple long sound. Most of them, 60 times you blow a tekiah on Rosh Hashanah, on one day of Rosh Hashanah. And then on the second day, not on the second day, and then the second sound is this 20 shivarim sounds, which is 222, and 20 short little tiny sounds. That's called teruah. It's 20, which is exactly what the word schach is. Samach, chaf, chaf. Which means that our schach is directly created by the sounds of the shofar. That means that the rock produces the shade. And he also says, that's the word. We know that the main idea of Rosh Hashanah is that it's a time of bakeseh, that the moon is covered, which represents a certain concealment and a certain judgment where God is hiding from us. It's the only holiday in the beginning of a month. Every holiday is always towards the middle of the month where there is more of a revelation. But Rosh Hashanah comes at the beginning of the month, bakeseh. He says, well, you take the word bakeseh and you rearrange the letter, you get the word basukah. Keseh and sukkah. That means from the very concealment of Rosh Hashanah comes the revelation and warmth of the sukkah. Then he says, you take the word shofar and you atbash it. You atbash the shofar. What's the atbash? The atbash is the system of you take the letter of the aleph bet and you switch each letter with the opposite letter on the other side of the aleph bet. So the Hebrew letters go 22 letters, starting with aleph base. So aleph is number 1, base is number 2, gimel. If you take the letters from the back, so Taf and Aleph become partners. They're the two first letter and the last letter. It's like you partner up A and Z, and B and Y, and so on and so forth. Here you're going Aleph and Taf, Beis and Shin, Gimel. So when you take the word shofar and you switch the letters, you get the word Beis Pei Vav Gimel, which is the exact gematria of Sukkah, 91. That means the other side of the shofar is the Sukkah. So if your shofar is intimidating you too much, realize that the shofar is going to turn into a Sukkah very, very quickly. Okay, this is where we were holding. Now we're going to continue. So what is this all telling you? That the reason why he was giving this very secret and explaining this very idea under the shade of the rock, because the shade and the rock were talking to him and giving him, they were all consistent with the secret. You know, God always puts us in a setting where the setting itself matches exactly what you're going through in your life and what your avodah is. There are people who can decodify it, like Rabbi Levi, the Rebbe's father, who know the secret of the universe, the secret of everything. So in every place they were, they say about the Rebbe's father that when they would have a gathering of Chassidim by a Farbrengen or by a family simcha, he would sometimes start saying Torah, and he would explain exactly why it's these 10 people or 11 people or 13 people who came on this and this day to be together at this bris, and how come this person is sitting over here and this person is sitting to the right of him and this person is sitting on the right of that. He would explain the dynamics of every single person in the room, who they are, what they are, in terms of the energy of their names, and the name is the essence, and why they happen to be sitting at this event and in this order, like it's sitting down randomly, and why. I mean, it was just mind-blowing, because if people who know the secrets of everything can see that the world is nothing is random, everything is God speaking, everything is a hidden divine code. So you can see it in this story, how he's explaining to us. It's awesome. So now he continues. Now this part that he says in the next 2-3 lines, he's saying things very cool, but I don't know. I couldn't find the source in Arizal for it, so I don't have enough information to explain why it is that way. So we can know what, not why. So let's do that. Okay. Now, a sukkah is not just made up of a roof of branches. It also has to have 4 walls. Now, a sukkah needs to have lechatchila, meaning the desirable way, the best way of doing the mitzvah is to have your sukkah with 4 walls. However, you can get away with 3 walls, and even the 3rd wall doesn't have to be a full wall. If you know how to position the wall properly, you can have 2 full walls, and then 1 wall, if it's positioned in the right spot, can be just a beam or a plank of wood, the size of a fist, it's called a tefach. And then you can have your sukkah. 2 and 1. So he's going to explain both the significance of 4 walls, how it relates to the shofar, and also the minimum sukkah of 2 walls and a tefach, how it too relates to the idea of the shofar, Rosh Hashanah, and so on and so forth. How Sukkot is an exact production of Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah produces Sukkot. So he says, the 4 walls of the sukkah, hine dalet pamim dofen. So what you need to do is you have to look at the word dofen. What's dofen? Dofen is a wall. Many walls are called defanot. 1 wall is called the dofen. Now in Hebrew, if you take the numeric value of the word dofen, so what do you have? You have 140. Dofen is gematria 140. Because pay is 80 and nun is 50. So 80 and 50 is 130. And then dalet and vav is another 10. So it's 140. So 4 times 140 is 560. So the 4 walls of the sukkah of 4 dofen is gematria 560. What's 560? 2 times 2 times 280. Remember we said Menatzpach. Menatzpach are the Gevurot. And Rosh Hashanah was all about Gevurot. And the blowing of the shofar was initially the construction of these, related to this building of Malchut, of building the Gevurot. Sweetening the judgments, but also first bringing the Gevuras in and then sweetening them. So there is a mystical concept which I tried to find in Eitz Chaim. I have to say I didn't look hard enough in pre-Eitz Chaim. But he doesn't say exact. See, usually he gives you a source where it is. So I was able to find here. He doesn't say where it is. He just says an idea that it must be taken from Pri Eitz Chaim, but I don't know. There's a bunch of chapters in Shar HaShofar, and you have to be able to look through it. You have to read it all. I didn't do that. So what he says is that the first blast of the shofar, I tried finding it for a while, but I couldn't find it. He says the first blast of the shofar delivers 2 times menatzbach. The first tekiah delivers the gevura from menatzbach, which is 280, 2 times menatzbach. So, well, that's this, and I would imagine that the first blow is a very important one. And that's the 4 walls of the sukkah. Same numeric value. So he's showing you how it relates. Gematria beis pamim menatzmach nimshach zed. This is drawn ma beis pamim menatzmach from the 2 times menatzmach. Remember, menatzmach are the 5 letters of the Hebrew alphabet that are double and they represent gevura. Mem nun tzadik pei, which equal for 280. 2 times menatzmach is 560. Hanimshachim na'adei tekiah rishayna, which is revealed or downloaded by the first tekiah. Again, he does not give a source over here, so I don't know. I could have asked AI. Sometimes AI is able to find it. Today I found something really cool in AI. But that's for another time. The 2 times menatzbach is downloaded through the first tekiah of tekiah shofar, of the blowing of the shofar. So here you have, as soon as you give the first blow of the shofar, you have already to have the roof of the sukkah, you have to go through all the 100 sounds. I have a new feeling for Rosh Hashanah. If you want to have a little bit of a light Rosh Hashanah, if you don't want it to be so intense. So the first blast of the shofar, you already have the 4 walls of your sukkah. Now, to get the full sachach, you're going to need all 100 sounds. But you have 4 walls. Your sukkah is up already. Your 4 walls is in the first blast. Then he gives another Kabbalistic idea, which or from the 2 left mochen of bina and atara de gevura, hanimshachem lamalchus bahar tardema v'hanasira, which are drawn to malchus during the sleep and during the time when God removes the rib. Again, a Kabbalistic concept, and I didn't know what this means, so I can't explain this. Look in a different Rishima, he says, in a different one of Rishima means one of the Rebbe's father's own writing on some other Zohar, where it says a story of Amma Shal Yumta, where he explains this idea. Well, I don't know where that is. Bepirish Chasira Machsara V'hachi Ktani. So he gives some kind of an explanation over there. Umin Adin. So that again will give you another connection of how the sukkah is related to the shofar. Okay. Umin Adin. And now he's going to explain what does it have to do with the basic requirement of walls, as we said earlier, is 2 and a handbreadth is enough. He's going to show you how that too is connected to the shofar. Umin hadin, which means the basic requirement of halacha, not the better way of doing it. If you don't have an option and you're stuck somewhere, you don't have a sukkah, you can do it on the basic level. It is enough bebeis defanos with 2 walls, v'doifen echad tefach, and 1 wall will be a handbreadth. The other 2 walls have to be at least 7 handbreadths, because the minimum size of a sukkah is 7 handbreadths each side. So it could be very tiny, but 7 handbreadths. But this last wall, it's enough if it's 1 tefach. Remember, don't rely on me, because it must be put in this particular place. Only if you put it in the right spot is it good. I'm not going to get into the halacha of it right now. Hine beis doifen im tefach. So if you take the two times the word dofen we said is 140, right? If you take 2 times dofen, so you get 280. Now you add the word tefach to it. Tefach is the name of the fist. It's called a tefach, a handbreadth. So tefach is 88 plus 9 is 97. So 97 plus 280. 90. Let me get my calculator out. Sorry, I forgot to tell you that we need a calculator. Ooh, today's class is going to be so cool. You just wait. Just wait. Fasten your seatbelts over here. What is it? 377? Let's see. What was it? 280 plus 97. 377. Yeah, you're right. 377. He says, well, that's the exact gematria of the word smolo, his left hand. Remember, the whole Rosh Hashanah is God's left hand. Smolo tachas l'roishi, his left hand is beneath my head, which is Rosh Hashanah. And Yom Kippur, that whole time is the left hand. So let's see Smolo. Let's check. Smolo is Shin Mem is 340. And then Lamed Aleph, Smolo, and plus 36. Lamed Aleph of plus 36, 376. And then you add 376 and 377 is same Gematria with the Kola. Gematria, no. Actually, he says, B'mechuvan. So I'm off somewhere. Because the word small, oh yeah, because it's not 36, it's 37. See? Because Aleph Lamed Vav is 37. Aleph and Lamed is 31, plus 6. Small O is 37. So it's plus 37 is 377. So it's Gematria Smoiloi B'mechavein. So the basic minimal of a sukkah, which is sukkah is all about God's right hand, yet the Gematria is Smolo, the left hand. Because what creates the sukkah, the first distance that happens from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur, that creates the right setting for God afterwards to grab us in his right hand with tremendous love. Comes out that the entire sukkah comes from the left hand of Rosh Hashanah. And that's the idea, that he said this Torah, Rebbe Lazar, when he's sitting under the shade of the rock. The rock is Rosh Hashanah, the hardness. The shade is the sukkah. And that's the reason why he was explaining this very teaching under the shade of the rock. V'amar Rebbe Lazar. And Rebbe Lazar made a statement when he sat down. He said, Shetzila chedvesa denafsha. He says, oi, shade is so delicious. He said, it's the joy of the soul. Oh, well, that's what the Zohar continues to say over there. Then on Sukkot, because God is showing his kindness, we are supposed to respond with joy. That's the mitzvah of Sukkot. It's the time of joyful soul rejoicing. It's like the joy of Sukkot. Because of the embrace of the right hand. Like he says over there, Besamach, right afterwards, Lebasar asar yamina. Afterwards comes Hashem's right hand. Lechapka, to embrace. Kedein chedves asharya ba'alma. So joy is then dwells in the world. Okay, now he's going to explain. All right, shade of a rock you could have gotten anywhere. Why did they have to get the shade in the rock in the desert? Bamidber, all of this was in the desert. Bamidber Dafka. This had to take place in the desert. And we are teaching this class also in the Southern California, which is a desert. So everything is always connected. Desert is a place. La Sagas Razin Dairaisa. It's a place for the apprehension of secrets of Torah. That's why your best channel for secrets of Torah is the Mayan channel. And the Mayan channel could not be in Brooklyn, New York. It couldn't be in Chicago. It couldn't be in Colorado. It had to be over here in the desert, California. Because over here is the place, Hamasugal, that is the most apropos to apprehending secrets of Torah. But not just secrets. Secrets, of course, we're soon going to see, he's going to quote a Zohar where the Zohar says the best place for secrets of Torah is in the desert. Cool, no? But even more that, particularly the secrets that relate to the month of Tishrei. Those downloads happen in the desert. See? You had no idea how happy I was going to make you today. Ubefrat, lasagas, hasodos, and particularly according to the secrets, shebechodesh hashvi, that is in the 7th month. Mir Rosh Hashanah ad yom basra dechag. From Rosh Hashanah until the last day of the holiday, which is Shmini Atzeret, it's what the secrets that they revealed at that time. Rebbe Lazar was now revealing the secrets of this particular time. Where did he do it? In the desert. Because he's going to show us from a different source from a story, another story stated in the Zohar, about how the secrets of the month of Tishrei is particularly derived in the desert. Let's see the story. Similar to what it says, and this is similar or based on what it says in the second volume of Zohar. Now what we are reading now is in the third volume of Zohar called Chelek Gimel. Which, by the way, the third volume of the Zohar is divided in 3 volumes. Aleph is Bereshis, Beis is Shemos, and Gimel is Bamidber, is Vayikra Bamidber Devarim. They're all part of Zohar Gimel. So in the Zohar, what we're learning now is the Zohar that we're learning is in the third section of Zohar, because it's in Parshas Bamidber. Not in Parshas Bamidber, it's in Parshas Pinchas, which is in the book of Bamidber. But the second volume of the Zohar is in Parshas Shemot. So this is a passage of the Zohar in Parshas Tetzaveh. So there it said this. I'll read you a Gavaldig story. Okay, even he doesn't bring the whole story, he brings just the thing. I'll read you a little bit of the story, not everything. The Zohar says over here in Parshas Tetzaveh, Daf, where? Kuf Pei Gimel. This is a great one. Reb Shimon and Reb Elazar Berei have a Azla Ba'archa. Reb Shimon and Reb Elazar. Now it's not Reb Elazar walking with Reb Chia. It's Reb Shimon and Reb Elazar walking. They have a Azla Imoyen, and along with them, remember, whenever it says along with them is their secondary. Reb Abba, Reb Yosi. So there's 4 sages going. Reb Shimon and Reb Elazar. Reb Abba and Reb Yosi are tagging along. As they're walking, they meet an old man. Now, we once learned a while ago where they're walking together, the sages, and they see a man, but there they saw a stain on his head, remember? And they said, this guy, he has problems. And they had to go fix it, the whole story. But this was a very good encounter. And this old man was holding a young child. Zakaf Eini Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon lifts his eyes up. And Reb Shimon lifted his eyes only when he wanted to. He lifts his eyes up the Chamalei and he looks at this individual. Amalei Reb Abba, Amalei Reb Abba. Reb Shimon says to Reb Abba, I love this. Vadai definitely milan chadatin is gabon b'haisa. We have news with this guy. This guy has good merchandise. This person, this old man has what to sell us. He's got good. Basically, he's carrying some good secrets. When they came to him, you're carrying a package with the garment of your clothing on your back. You're coming. Manat, who are you? Now, why he said that? I need Rabbi Levi Yitzchak to interpret that Zohar to say why Rabbi Shimon told him you're carrying your suitcase, your backpack on your back. Well, what is he trying to tell him that? Your clothing in your back? I don't know. So the man says, I'm a Jew. Yehuda, no. Rabbi Shimon says, me, you're not going to fool. You're not just a Jew. Spill the beans. Tell me what you know. Omar, he says, you have some good new ideas today that you have today amongst you. Please hand it over. Where he said to him, where do you live? Amalei. So no, Reb Shimon said to him. Reb Shimon said to him, where do you live? Where do you come from? Reb Shimon continues the conversation. The guy doesn't answer him. Reb Shimon continues the conversation. Where are you from? Amalei, he says, the Yudah have a be'inim prisha madbra. I live amongst those who are living in seclusion in the desert. I'm a wild man. I'm a man of the desert. And we study Torah in the desert. He's from that club that sits in the desert and studies Torah. But now I'm traveling because I'm going to the town. I'm going to the city. To sit in the shade of God in the days of the 7th month. So this story happened right before the month of Tishrei. 7th month is the month of Tishrei, before Rosh Hashanah. So basically, he's coming into town for the high holidays. I live in the desert. That's where I spend my time. Doing what? Learning secrets of the Torah. Now I'm coming in because, Shoshana, you should spend it with a minyan. You should hang out. You should be in the city. No, Chadu Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon is very happy. Omar, he says, Nesiv. He says, let's sit down. This already requires a sit. Let's sit down. Definitely God sent you our way. We needed to meet you. Amalei, problems with keeps on blanking out. Such big secrets. Amalei, he says, Chayecha, I'm sure the Nishma Milim Upimach, we're going to hear words from your mouth. I love every word of the Zohar. From the new ancient words. I love that. New and ancient. We're going to hear some new ancient words from you. The netatin tamon Bamidber that you planted over there in the desert, from this 7th month. In other words, I know you're coming out here for the 7th month, which is the month of Tishrei, the high holidays, but I know you're carrying with you great secrets that you planted in the desert, and these secrets are about the 7th month. That's what we're learning over here, that the secrets of the desert of the 7th month are planted in the desert. And you need to meet a desert person who's going to share with you the secrets of a guy who lives in the desert. That's the guy you want to meet to get the secrets about the 7th month. Why did you now choose to come and what prompted you? No, and tell us the secrets. That's what he's basically saying. I know you have secrets. And tell us also the secrets of what prompted you to leave the desert and come to the community. The old man says to him, the way you're asking that question, I know that wisdom is with you. So the old man now begins to see that he's talking to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai right away. So he realizes he has over here a peer to speak to. Umilach, and your words, your words reach the heaven of wisdom. So basically, I'm in good company now, so we can share. We can hang out a little bit over here and discuss. So the man goes on to give a whole explanation of why God led the Jewish people through the desert. And basically he explains them that the desert is a place of the Sitra Achra. This is a place of the other side. It's the place for Hollywood. The place for all the klipot, for all the unholiness. That's the headquarters. That's the desert. The reason why God took the Jewish people through the desert, when he took them out of Egypt for 40 years, initially, the reason God intended was because holiness became so powerful. See, holiness was always very weak in the world. From when Adam and Eve sinned, holiness was banished from this world, and this world was promulgated by evil. And that was everywhere. But finally, holiness got a footage in this world by the time of the going out of Egypt and became mighty and powerful. And God said, let me lead this powerful entourage of holiness through the desert. And with that, we are going to basically wipe out the Sitra Achra once and for all. We're going to wipe out the other side, the side of darkness. So the march through the desert was really supposed to be a conquering and an eradication of Hamas, of the deeper Hamas of the whole, like a total wipeout of the klipot. That was the idea. Had the Jewish people not sinned in the desert, it would have been the end of evil, and we would have had Moshiach, and we would have been. But they had to go to the desert because they had to go confront evil. The headquarters of evil sits in the desert. The snake, the scorpions, all those venomous creatures that live in the desert. So they're physical manifestations of the spiritual forces of darkness that are the satanic forces that are in the desert. So God leads the Jewish people. But whenever you go into enemy territory, you can get hit too. It's dangerous. And that's exactly what happened. So even though, he says, very interesting, the Jewish people gave the klipa the first blow, they dealt a devastating blow to the klipa, to the unholy, but the snake hit back. You hit the snake in the head, but the snake, while it was bleeding from its head, turned around and bit them on the leg. Like it says by Adam, Hashem says to Adam and Chava, you will chop the head of the snake, but he'll bite you in the heel. And that's what happened. And that bite that they got bitten by the snake was so vicious, it caused the entire generation to die in the desert. Never thought of it that way. In other words, taking the Jewish people in the desert was very risky. They weakened the forces of darkness, but at the same time, the entire generation that died because of the bite of the snake, which means the sin that happened of idolatry and all of that. But it's because if they would have not have gotten the Torah in the desert, they would have gotten someone else. They probably would not have sinned. But why didn't God give it to them in such a dangerous place? Because the whole point is to confront evil. Then he goes on to say, but because the desert is a place of such darkness and such danger and such opposition to holiness, it's precisely over there where the greatest lights are downloaded. Because he goes on to say the beautiful words that there's no light, only the greatest light is only the one that comes from darkness. And only the subduing of the forces of evil is what produces the highest lights. Gives me so much more of an appreciation of that we're sitting over here in the middle of Hollywood teaching all this Chassidus. Because the great light can only come in the subduing of when you're living in the headquarters of Klippa, and over there, you subdue the darkness, and that's where the light comes down. This is what the man is saying. That's why I hang out in the desert. I go there to study Torah. He says, I do the same thing. I go there to study Torah to subdue the forces of evil, and over there I merit great secrets of Torah. So it's not so simple to go to the desert. You have to choose if you're ready for it. But if you are ready for it, boom, wow. It's in the desert that you get the greatest revelation, because over there you have the greatest temptation and the greatest klipa. Anyways, he says, and all year long I'm in the desert, but he says when comes Rosh Hashanah time, the forces of judgment go crazy. The forces of the klipa. Because right by Rosh Hashanah, the 7th month comes in, there is a powerful surge of the forces of impurity that rise up towards God, towards heaven, to evoke punishment in the world, to prosecute, to bring. Satan goes up to God and prosecutes and tries to bring God's wrath on the world. So it's not safe to be in the desert. Imagine that. All year long I can handle it. But when it comes to the 7th month, you got to leave the desert. And then he goes on to say something beautiful. Why on the 7th month does the forces of... So something to the effect, I didn't read it well. Something to the effect because all the blessings in the world are contained in the 7th month. And since God is about to download all the blessing and all the goodness, Hashem has to first clear away. You can't give such goodness to the world when it's mixed, good and bad are mixed, because then a lot of the good is going to end up in the hands of the evil. So there has to be some cleaning. God has to do some housekeeping before. So to help in this, they rise with prosecuting, and that's why God does judgment. Once there's judgment, they go rushing in to, God forbid, bring judgment where we shouldn't have judgment. Understand? That's the cycle. That's what he explains. That's kind of this whole discussion, and he sits for pages and pages and goes on to explain the whole Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. And I don't know if it's the same. It's probably not the same ideas that we learned, but maybe similar, where he goes on and on to explain the secrets of these days, of the holidays. Pages of Zohar on this, of this old man sharing with Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, and then Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, certain things he doesn't know, and he asks Reb Shimon fills him in, and they're having this conversation. And then later, he says, so there's a few lines over here. Number one, he says, so he's going to bring, in the Lekutei Levi Yitzchak, he brings 3 quotes that the secrets what do you see from all of this? That the secrets of the 7th month are revealed from the people in the desert. and in the desert. Visu, and he says these words too. Visu deloy misyashvin milidaraisa elatamon. The secrets of the Torah, the words of the Torah, do not settle in a person's head, only over there, in the desert. And then later he says, much later, he says a secret about Rosh Hashanah until Shmini Atzeres. It's hinted to in the word Mivorach. Yehi Shem Hashem Mivorach Me'ata V'Adolam. The name of God should be blessed from now until ever. So the word Mivorach has the secret of this entire period of time. Because the word Mivorach is made up of Mem Beis, Reish Chaf, which spells the word Mab, Mem Beis, Reish Chaf. Reish Chaf spells Rach. Now, Rach means soft. Mem Beis, we know that one of God's names is called the name of 42. It's the name of Gevura. It's the name of rising energy. Anavakoach is a mystical prayer based on the name of 42. 42 is the name of Gevura. I learned today in Lekutei Torah that the first parsha of the Shema, V'ahavta, which is all about love, you should love God, which is a chesed energy, but there are 42 words in V'ahavta. So 42 is the name of Gevura. How does it work? It's because it's the lights of kindness. It's the energy of Gevura in the vessels of kindness. V'hoya im Shemoah has 72 words. The next portion of the Shema. Not to the end, but until the word V'samtem or something is. And why you stop over there, I'm not sure. But there's 72 words in V'hoya im Shemoah. Just a second. 72 is Gemaria Chesed. Kindness. And yet, the energy of the words are strict. It says if you don't listen, God will get angry at you. There it's the opposite. It's the energy of kindness in the container of Gevura. But the name 42, that's why he says Rosh Hashanah is very much related to the name 42. That's the mem beis of the word mevorach. Rosh Hashanah is 42. But Shmini Atzeret, at the end, it becomes rach. It becomes soft. All the judgments are sweetened, and everything is rach. Rach means soft. Mem beis is hard. Gevura is hard. Rach is the opposite. It's like a hard rock. It's hard, soft. So mevorach means this whole process of sweetening judgments, mellowing out the hardness and the severities into softness. So when this man says the secret, he says these words. This one secret, Bamidber. I love this. He says, one of my fellow guys in the Midbar, who's not here today, he's not with us, but one of our club guys over there in the Midbar, he knows the secret, and he told us the secret of the word Mivorach, Mem Beis. So now he's sharing already. Now that guy obviously stayed in the desert, so he's even more deserty than him, because he at least is leaving the desert for the high holidays. The other one, he's sticking it out in the desert. I don't know, but so he's like a real desert guy. And so he's got the secret. So from all these three places, the Rebbe's father proves just one point. That what? That the place for secrets of the Torah, and particularly the secrets relating to this period of time, is in the desert. So that's the reason why Rabbi Chia is asking the question in the desert under the shade of the rock. Gewalt. As he said, Reb Shimon was happy. He says, I am sure, Chayecha means by your life. It's like a word of a shvua, it's like an oath. The nishma mepumach, we will hear from your mouth, me'inan milin chadatin atikin, from these new old words, the netatin tamon bamidbara, that you planted in the desert. Maha yarcha shaviyah, about the 7th month. Ubedaf Kuf Pei Dalet Amud Aleph, and then page 140. This is on page 143, and on page 144 in the Zohar, he says these words: you do not settle the words of the Torah only in the desert. Ubedaf Kuf Pei Zayin Amud Aleph, and in page 187 Amud Aleph, he says, one secret I know, Bamidber, one of our friends from the desert. And what was the secret? Was in the word mevorach, mem beis, which is 42, rach, sweetened. Mem beis Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the name of 42. Rach and soft, b'shmini atzeres. Comes out that this whole idea of desert is particularly this time, from Rosh Hashanah till Shmini Atzeres. Ayin Sham. Kabbalah. So if you want to know the secret of that, you got to speak in the desert. Hare comes out. That the secrets regarding the days from Rosh Hashanah to Shmini Atzeres have a lot of a connection to the desert. Therefore, and that's the reason when they were sitting under one shade of a rock in the desert, Dafka. And what did Rebbe Lazar Amar? Rebbe Lazar expressed, and he said, that the shade is the delight of the soul. Who? Imkain, Hare Rebbe Lazar bechedva, comes out, he's going to add even more. Not only is Rabbi Lazar the right person to ask, and Rabbi Chia is the right person asking, and the place is the right place. Number one, it's the desert. Secondly, they're under the shade of the rock of the desert, which is the secret itself. So everything is perfect over here to explore this thing. More than that, Rabbi Lazar was in a state of joy. And happiness and joyfulness is a time when secrets flow. If you're sad and depressed, you're not getting any secrets. Rebbe Lazar bechedva is in a state of joy. That's when the secrets of Torah spill, when the master, the teacher, is happy. Just like we know, just like we know that the sages say, when you drink wine, secrets come out. That's the joy that the wine, the alcohol, puts you in a joyous state. And then when you drink correctly, and then yotzasai, then the good secrets come out, the hidden secrets of the Torah. Sham dafka, so it's precisely over there. V'az dafka shalu Reb Chia, and that's exactly when Reb Chia asked him to explain to him the days from Rosh Hashanah until Shmini Atzeres. V'sham dafka, and over there, v'az dafka, and precisely then, Gila loy Rebbe Lazar. Rebbe Lazar revealed it to him. Oisam those secrets. Omnam, however. Now he's going to ask a question. Rebbe Lazar opens up with a verse. The first thing that came out of Rebbe Lazar's mouth, before he starts explaining all the details, how the left hand first, and then the right, and then the whole situation, he begins first with a verse. He quotes a verse. Now, usually when it says, you have that in Midrashic, that was the style of Midrashic teaching, that the rabbi would begin his talk by quoting a verse of scripture. And then he would expound on that verse. So in our case, this is a very appropriate verse. What's the verse he expounded on? That God uncovered and revealed his holy arm, which we explained that that's the energy of Rosh Hashanah. The question he asks is, why did he choose that verse that only contains within itself half the energy? Meaning the energy of the first part of the month of Tishrei, which is the energy of Gevura. In that verse, there's no hint, or so it seems like, to the sweetening of it, and to the love, and to the rest of, and to Shmini Atzeret, definitely the union and it's all not there. It's only the left hand. So if he's choosing a verse, he should have chose a verse that has everything in a nutshell. You might say, because there's no such verse. He's going to show you there are such verses. So why did he open with this verse? Why didn't he open with... So what he's going to do is going to show you that you have to read deeper into this one verse. You'll see everything is in the verse. Even though it seems like it's only speaking about the left hand, the right hand is there, And Shmini Atzeres is there, which is the Yesod is there. Everything is there. Let's see. But he asked first the question. That Hashem revealed His holy arm, or Mefarish, and he explains that this is the one arm. Shuyat Smol, which is the left arm, Gevurais, which is Gevura, Shayach L'Rak L'Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Seems that it only has a relationship to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Lahayud Yamim Alolo, to the first 10 days. Sha'azu Smoilei Tachas L'Roshi, which is the left hand beneath my head, to the first Yud of the word Chia. Remember, in his name Yud, he has a 10. Yeah, that thing. But how about the rest of it? V'loy l'sukkis, and not the sukkis. Sukkot, Sha'azuz v'yaminot chapkeni. During the month of the holiday, the booths of Sukkot is the time when Hashem's right hand embraces. There is no hint to in that verse to the right hand. Or the Shmini Atzeres. And also not the Shmini Atzeres, Sha'azu azivug. That's the time of the marital union. V'ayichud, and the intimacy. V'lama loy pasach. Why didn't he open up be'eze pasuk with a verse sheyirmaz gamal sukkos shmini atzeres that should be indicative that should indicate or should symbolize or should allude to sukkos as well and shmini atzeres? Especially since when you say pasach means he opened the faucet. What are these rabbis? They didn't just say they opened the faucet; they opened the divine flow. The verse is that faucet, is that divine flow. So in that pouring, there has to be the whole teaching, not just a part of it. And he gives an example in the parentheses. There's a verse that says, his left hand is beneath my head, in Shir Hashirim, and his right hand hugs me. That verse at least has the left hand and the right hand. Maybe it doesn't have the next stage, which is the Zivug, the Shmini Atzeres, but at least it has the right and the left. And it's interesting, he does quote that pasuk. He's later, Rebbe Lazar is going to bring that, but that's not what he opened with. It's most important is what he opened with. Why did he open with the verse that only depicts half of the month? In that verse, you have at least Sukkot as well. He's going to have a verse that you have all three. B'pasuk, there is a pasuk. It says, Asois mishpat, to do judgment. Va'avas chesed, and love of kindness. V'hatzne leches, im elokecha, and being modest with God, going modestly with God. That verse has all three. Osa mishpat, doing judgment, is Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, which is the days of judgment. We say then Hamelech HaMishpat, the king of judgment. Asos chesed, doing avas chesed, loving kindness, is Sukkot. Sukkot is a time of kindness. Plus, it says that on Sukkot, or before Sukkot, the few days before, you're supposed to give a lot of tzedakah. It's a time of tzedakah, that Rizal says, right before Sukkot. It's your mom's yard site then. That's the time for a lot of chesed, a lot of tzedakah. And finally, v'hatzne leches, and being private, walking privately with God. Privacy is indicating the union, which happens in private. So all three are one verse. So why couldn't he open with that verse? Sheraim is al kulam, which that verse indicates all of them. Asois mishpat, doing judgment. Gevurais, that's Gevura. Baseres yemei tshuva, the 10 days of tshuva. V'oimer maz hamelech hamishpat, then we say the king of mishpat. V'avas chesed, and the loving of kindness. B'sukkos, is V'hatzne leches, and walking privately im elokecha, with God. B'shmini atzeres, is in Shmini Atzeres. Sha'azu hayichud, that's the time of the intimacy. Shu b'hatzne, which is in private. K'mo shekasa b'makam acher, as stated elsewhere. B'siyat shemai, elsewhere he brings this verse, the Rebbe's father, and explains it. Yashloimar, we can say. So first he gives an easier answer, and then he's going to give a richer answer. The first answer he says is because it happened in the desert. And we said earlier, remember we spoke about the desert is a very harsh place. It's full of forces of darkness. So if you want to speak Torah in the desert, you're already in a very challenging place. So you have to really take out your machine gun and fire a couple of rounds. And you have to basically silence the klipot everywhere so that they keep away so you have space to reveal secrets of Torah. Because the snakes and scorpions are all over the place. And spiritually. So that's why he opened up with a verse that is only Gevura, because that was basically the way that he fired a couple of rounds. Boom, 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 boom. He lets out God's left hand. He creates kind of a what do they call it? A buffer zone of where the klippas can't come in, because it was in the desert. So Yesh Loimar, that's his first answer. Since this little meeting, they're walking in the desert. It was very hot. They sat down under a rock, so they're in the desert, which is enemy territory. Shumakam Aklipas. It's the place of Klipas. Nekuda de Churva. It's the Nekuda de Churva, Bizarre Pashas Tetzava Hanal, where it says that it's a place of destruction. But Tzarech Lachnio, you have to subdue it. And how do you subdue the Klipas? Al Yedei B'chinas Gevura is Davka. So sometimes you see pictures of the Tzahal soldiers. They're sitting and learning Dafayomi. They're learning Chitas. They're learning Rambam in Gaza. They're sitting there. They're learning. So what do you think? Before they could sit down and start chilling and learning over there, they have to have a little bit of clearing of the air. You have to make sure there's no mines there. You have to make sure there's no. So this is the same idea. They had to do a little bit of a clearance. Valderech, and this is similar. That when the Jews traveled in the desert, the main marchers were the Levites, because the Levites were the ones who carried the Mishkan. The Kohanim, they did the work when it was set up, but they were not the main movers in the desert. They were the Levites, because the Levites, we know, are the energies of Gevura. They were their element is Gevura, their element is severity. They were the ones that were carrying Mishkan, the Mishkan, V'kelov, and the Kalim, Bamidber, and the Midbar, Lahachnioi, to subdue the desert. And how many travels did they do? 42 travels. 42 is the number of Gevura. So in the desert, you want to keep the guns ablaze. There were 42 travels in the desert. Shemembes, which is the name of 42. Shubchen is Gevura is Dafka, which is the name of Gevura. Very important name of Gevura. To subdue the klippas of the desert. That's why he opens up with this verse. That God reveals his left hand. The left side, Gevuras, which is Gevura. Is to subdue the klippas that's in the desert. Even though that's maybe a satisfying answer, Yesh Loimar, we can do better than that, he says. That what? Oid Shebapasik Zeh. That in this verse, if you dig deeper in the verse, you'll find Sukkos there. Not only Sukkos, you'll find Shmini Atzeres there. You'll find everything there. Yesh Remez Gam Shmini Atzeres v'Sukkos. You'll find Shmini Atzeres there and Sukkos. V'hu, and there is Milas, the word Chasaf. Chasaf means he revealed. Chasaf Hashem Ezra Yakoche. Chasaf is the first word. And in the word Chasaf is Sukkos and Shmini Atzeres. Well, the 8th day is the Ches. Ches is 8. Very pretty simple. Shu Ches, Shaf. The word is Chasaf is Ches, the letter Chet, and Shaf. So Ches is Shmini Atzeres. Ches is already the 8th day. Just like the Ches and Chia, remember? The Ches of Chia connected Chia to Shmini Atzeres. Yom HaChes, the 8th day, Shubchenes Yesod, which is the element of Yesod. Now, Shaboy, Chibur Havaya Adna. What does Yesod do? Yesod is the bonding power in the person that bonds the mashpia to the makabel, the influencer to the recipient, the man to the woman. They get connected to each other through the Yesod. In the divine names, the masculine energy of God, the male energy is called Havaya, the tetragrammaton, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Female energy is Aleph Daled Nun Yud. The name Ado, which represents kingship, that's the female, that's the name of the Shekhinah, Aleph Daled Nun Yud. The name of the Ze'eranpin, of the male element, in God is Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yesod, what does Yesod do? It's bonding. It connects the male with the female. It's the intimacy. Shmini Atzeres, which Shmini Atzeres is the day of the intimacy, the day of Yosef, Where Yosef says, take everybody out, just me and my brothers. It's Za and Malchut together. That's it. Watch this. If you do Yud K Vav K, each letter times the corresponding letter in the Aleph Dalet Nun Yud. So Yud times Aleph, because the Yud of Yud K Vav K of the Tetragrammaton times the Aleph of the word Adonai. So Yud times Aleph is Yud, is 10. Mark down 10. The next letter is Hey, Dalet. And in the other one is Dalet. And Adonai is Dalet. So Hey times Dalet is 20. 5 times 4 is 20. So you have 10 and you have 20. Okay, you're writing it down? 10 and 20. Then Aleph, Dalet, and then, Yud K Vav. Vav from Yud K Vav K. Vav, which is 6. On the other side, you have Nun, 50. So 6 times 50 is 300. So you have 10, 20, and 300. Altogether, 330. Right? Fine. Then you have, in Yud K Vav K, you have a Hey. The latter one is a Hey. And in Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, you have a Yud. So Hey times Yud, 5 times 10 is 50. 330 plus 50 is 380. Okay, now let's take a look at the word Chasaf. Chasaf is spelled Ches Shin Pei. Shin Pei is 380. So think about that. Shin Pei is 380. Which is when do you get 380? When Havaya and Adna get married to each other, when they bond with each other, which is the times, each letter time, the two of them intermingle with each other. That gives you 380. When does that happen? Ches, on the 8th day. So Shmini Atzeres is hinted to in the word Chasaf, right out there. The Ches, the 8th day, which is the bond of the Zah and the Malchut of Havaya and Adna, which is Gematria 380. Shav. So he says, when you double those letters, ze al ze, one on the other, it gives you exactly 380 b'mechuvan, exactly. There's a certain, the Gemara speaks about that there was a certain Pesachtas Megillah. The Gemara says that that the Shekhinah, the divine presence, goes along with the Jewish people wherever the Jewish people are in exile. So when the Jewish people are in the Babylonian exile, or then the Shekhinah is there. When the Jewish people are in the Edomite, the Shekhinah is always with the Jewish people. So then the Gemara gets very particular. The Gemara says, so where exactly is the Shekhinah hanging out? What's the address? So the Gemara says, yeah, okay, there's a particular shul around the corner called that and that shul, that's where the Shekhinah is. And the shul is called Shaf v'Yasef, which was a shul that was built by Ezra and Nehemiah. They built it in Babylon. I think in the city of Nehardai. They built the shul there, an ancient shul. And that shul is where the Shekhinah is. The Gemara even tells a story of one of the sages going in there and he wasn't prepared. And he got very scared, the whole story. He heard the noise or whatever. It was like, the Shekhinah is present literally there. The Rebbe says that same idea is in 770. That's the whole famous talk the Rebbe gives about Beis Rabbeinu Shebebavel, how the main synagogue of the leader of the generation, that's where the Shekhinah is. So my son Zalmi always complains what's going on in 770. I said, yeah, exactly. It's exactly where the Shekhinah is, with all the chaos and with all the mishagas going on there. That's where it is. No. In any case, it's the shul of Shaf. Now, the word it uses over there for the name of the shul is Shaf. Shaf is Havaya Adna, because that's where the Zivug takes place. The Shekhinah goes there, and that's where the unity is. Okay, But we're not done yet. That's only Shmini Atzeres. Where is Sukkot? Tevas Choshaf im Havaya. If you take the whole word Chasaf, which is 388, not just 380. You do the whole word Ches Shin Pei, so it's 388. You add Havaya to it, because it says in the pasuk, we're not just adding Havaya for no reason. What does it say? Chasaf Havaya Zroya Kachay. That Havaya revealed his arm. So when you take Chasaf together with Havaya, 388 plus 26, 414, no? 388 plus, it's 414. 388 plus 26 is 414. It's exact numeric value of the word V'ahavta, you should love. V'ahavta Hashem, which is Sukkot. Which time of the year is the time of love we discussed earlier? The right hand, the love, the Yamina, God's right hand hugs us, Sukkot. So in the word Chasaf itself, Shmini Atzeres. In Chasaf Havaya is Sukkot. Bamidber V'ahavta, Shubchenas Chesed Yamin, which is the right side, which is the love, which the right side is love. Moshiach, like it says, Va'ahavas Chesed. Actually, a verse that Chesed, which is kindness, Va'ahavas Chesed, and the love of Chesed. So Chesed, which is kindness, is the soul of kindness is love. Sukkos. That's when his right hand embraces us. So when you heard Rabbi Lazar say Chasaf Hashem is Roa Kachay, you don't just read the general meaning of the word, you also look at the gematria, you look a little deeper. You see, it's the whole thing is there, it's all there. Hare, Shegam Shmini Atzeres v'Sukkos, so that Shmini Atzeres and Sukkos, Mirumazim b'Pasuk Zeh, they're also hinted to in this verse. V'hashayches, now this is going to get, now the fireworks are going to start. V'hashayches, the kol zeh hachal, the Inyan Pinchas. Now we're going to bring in a whole new thing. I have a wedding tomorrow of a person, a chassan, his name is Pinchas. I'm very excited because they want me to speak, and now I have all this Pinchas stuff. The connection to all of this is to the idea of Pinchas. What's Pinchas doing over here? Well, this whole Zohar is in Parshas Pinchas. And when you look in the Zohar, it says that this whole episode that happened over here with these rabbis sitting down and Rabbi Chia starts asking the question and they start explaining all this. The discussion that was happening before that was about Pinchas. Pinchas, who's Pinchas? Let's refresh our memory. Pinchas is the grandson of Aaron, the high priest, who stood up and acted with a action of vengeance. Stood up with an actor and killed the Jewish prince that cohabited publicly with a Midianite girl, and he came after them with his spear. He killed them both. There was a plague amongst the Jewish people. Jews were dying like flies, and he stopped the plague. God says, I will give him my covenant of peace. So he's going to show you how this Pinchas contains this everything here that we learned. Everything we learned is all going to be inside the story of Pinchas and in the name Pinchas. Kiarei, he says, what's the connection to Pinchas? Because in the earlier part, before Rabbi Chia spoke, Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Lazar were talking about Pinchas. So Rabbi Chia would not have taken it off the subject. If Rabbi Chia is asking, it's because it also has a question to Pinchas, a relationship to Pinchas. What's the connection? Who? This is so good. Because this entire procedure from Rosh Hashanah until Shmini Atzeres all happened with Pinchas. The Sidram, and exactly this order, Kulam Hayu bePinchas, all of it was in Pinchas. Why? Pinchas, what was it? When Pinchas comes onto the scene, he's acting with a lot of gavura. He's killing someone. He's grabbing a spear and coming after them. He's doing judgment, like Rosh Hashanah, a time of intense judgment. Ki Pinchas mitchila nislabish beruach kina. He clothed himself with the spirit of kina, of zealousness. Amaisa Zimri, on the action of Zimri, who was the prince of the tribe of Shimon, who did the sin. V'lavash ruach az, and he clothed himself with a spirit of firmness, ugvura, and strength. V'harege Zimri, and he killed Zimri, v'kazbi, and his Midianite princess. Shekolzo in Gevurais, which is all an act of extreme Gevura. Kishmai, Pinchas. Well, it fits his name. Because Pinchas is the exact numeric value as Yitzchak. Pinchas is 208. And Yitzchak is 208. So Yitzchak is Gevura, as we know. Abraham is kindness. Yitzchak is Gevura. Pachad Yitzchak, the dread of Yitzchak. Pinchas acts like his namesake, like Yitzchak with Gevura. Now remember, I want you to remember a moment. We said earlier there were 3 Gevuras. One of them is where salvation comes from. The other one is where redemption comes from. But the middle one is where vengeance comes from. And that's the one that corresponds to Yitzchak, is where Nakama comes from. Zealousness, but also revenge. Wasn't an act of vengeance to avenge God's honor for what was being done. Okay? Uksiv Sham, now he's going to point it out. In the verse in Parshas Pinchas, it says 3 times the word Bekano, which means vengeance. It says, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen Heshev es Chamasi, restored my anger. I was very angry. Ma'al b'nei Yisrael. Bekanoi es Kinasi, when he venged my vengeance. V'kan es Kinasi. V'loi chilisi es b'nei Yisrael, and I did not destroy the Jewish people, be'kinasi, with my anger, with my vengeance. So it mentions 3 times kin, which are related to the 3 Gevurais. The Ayin Lekutei Torah Arizal Reish Parshas Pinchas. Look in Arizal in the beginning of Parshas Pinchas, where he explains these 3 Gevurais that are there. Hu Gimel B'chinas Gevurais. These are the 3 Gevurais. The Hainu Kemoya Gimel B'chinas Gevurais. Well, it fits very much with Es Zroya Kachai. God revealed Es Zroya. Chasaf Havaya, we said earlier, is Shmini Atzeres and Sukkot. But Es Zroya Kacho is the 3 Gevuros. Shehem, and what did we say? Shehem Yeshua, one of them comes, the Zohar says, one of them is the hand that produces salvation, which is also an element of might. To bring salvation, you have to be tough. To redeem the hostages, you have to be tough. By being cute and smiling and like the idiotic Europeans want, to give ice creams to Hamas, you're not getting no hostages back. So to bring a Yeshua, to bring a salvation, you need Gevura. So the Gevura, Shehem Yeshua, which is one thing. Nekama, revenge, to punish the wicked. And the other one, Purkana, which is redemption. Keniskal, we said earlier. So you find by Pinchas these 3 things. K'moiken b'Pinchas asa nekama b'Zimri v'Kazbi. He took revenge. He did vengeance on Zimri and Kazbi. Val yedei zeh, through this asa Yeshua liYisrael. He did a salvation for Israel. Sheparkam, that he redeemed them from death. So there was a salvation and a redemption. All 3 through the vengeance. The Nirmazmeh, and all of this is hinted to Bishmai Pinchas, in his name Pinchas. You ready? For really cool. Here we go. Shehu, the word Pinchas is Pinchas. You can divide it into Pei Yud Nun, which is Pin, and Ches Samach. So let's now break it down. Well, what does this mean? Rosh Tevis. Oh, this is good. This is getting better. The pay of Pinchas is the acronym of the word Purkana. Like Yukam Purkan. Purkan means redemption in Aramaic. So the pay from Pinchas is Purkana. Maybe that's the reason why Eliyahu, who is Pinchas, is the one who announces the redemption. The word first letter pay in Pinchas is Purkan. Purkan means redemption. Like we say, Yukom Purka min Shemaya, let redemption come from heaven. So the pay from Pinchas is Purkana. The Yud in the word Pincha, Pin, is Yeshua, is the first letter of the word Yeshua. And the Nun of Pinchas is Nekama, vengeance. But you got all three there in the Pinchas. What do you want from Pinchas? Not to do these three things. It's in his name. Pei Yud Nun. Fine. Mipnei. Now, why did he do it? Why did he take these three gevurais? Why did he? Because he loved the Jewish people. In other words, he's not because he's an angry man who loves to do angry things. It's because he saw the Jewish people's threat. They were going to die, all of them. Because he chas. The word chas means to have mercy and care. Because of his caring for the Jewish people, he did. So the name, so listen, the pin comes from the chas. Because he cared, because he had such caring for Israel, for the Jewish people, he had so much avas Yisrael, because he's a grandson of Aaron who loves the Jewish people. He's a man of kindness, really. He's acting with gevura, mipnei shachas al Yisrael, because he had chas. Shalo yomusu kulam chas v'shalom, they shouldn't all die. Chas in Aramaic means to have mercy, that empathy. Uksivbe, we're just beginning over here. I mean, the piece is almost over, but like the mind-blowing connections are unbelievable. Uksivbe, and it says by him, Arsher kine leloikov, that he did vengeance for God, vayechaper al bnei Yisrael, and he atoned for Israel. So it says, Tachas Asher kine, he did vengeance for God, and he brought atonement. Oh, that's Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah is a day of where God is judging. That's kine. Rosh Hashanah, you feel like the a little bit of the zealousness of God. It's very tough. Yom Kippur is atonement. So kine and vayachaper. It's not just that you have the three gevurot that we have on Rosh Hashanah on the first 10 days of it. In the name Pinchas, you have the whole gevura experience of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. But you even have the details of it. You have Rosh Hashanah and you have Yom Kippur. Vayachaper. The kine lelokov is the mighty hand of God that is revealed in Rosh Hashanah. The yachaper al bnei Yisrael, and the atonement on Israel. Hukamoy hakapara is like the atonement v'aslicha umechila, and the forgiveness shebiyom HaKippurim that happens on Yom Kippur. Like it says, Ki biyom hazeh yichaper aleichem. On this day he will atone upon you. V'yesh loymar, we can say, in parentheses, zehu chas the Pinchas. The pei yud nun of Pinchas is more the vengeance that he did. The chas of Pinchas, which we said is because he cared of Israel, is the atonement that he brought for Israel. Shu Masha Kippur al bnei Yisrael, brought atonement. Yom Kippur, he brought atonement. Now, what was given to him as a reward? Ubeshvil zeh, for the sake. That means direct out of the rock. What did we say? Comes the shade. Out of the toughness comes the kindness. It's amazing. Pinchas was appointed Kohen. What is a Kohen? A Kohen is a man who blesses. A Kohen is not a person who runs after people, stabbing them. I mean, that's not the Kohen energy. The Kohen energy, even to the right, a Kohen is the man who, whenever you need a blessing, you call the Kohen. He's the man who downloads blessings. A Kohen is called Ish HaChesed, the man of kindness. So how does the kindness suddenly get the Pinchas from an act of zealousness? Well, how do you get Sukkos? Sukkos is, Bas Sukkah is the same letters as Bakeseh, like we said, right? It's the Atbash of Shofar is Gematria 91, Sukkah. Everything of the kindness of Sukkos and the love of Sukkos and the embrace of Sukkos comes from the severity of Rosh Hashanah. So that B'shvilzeh, V'hoi Saloi, Hashem gives him Bris Kohunas Hailam, eternal a Kohenhood. Shanasa Kohen, he became a Kohen. Kohen ubchenas chasadim. Kohen is chesed, is the kindness. Yamin, the right side. The Levites are on the left side. It would have been more appropriate that Pinchas should become a Levite. No, he became a Kohen. So that is similar to his right hand embraces us in Sukkot. What does it say? Look at the words. Tachas ashekine lelekov. That as a direct result that he had zen. Tachas. Where were they sitting in the desert? Under the shade of the rock. There was a rock. And they were sitting because the rock must have been sticking out a little bit. They were under. So the shade comes beneath. You sit in a sukkah, which is under the branches which come from the sound of the shofar. So tachas, in place, simply means in place of, but also beneath the gevura of Rosh Hashanah is the kindness, is the love of Sukkot. Tachas hashekina l'gav yachaper, tachas mamish. Kamoy atzila shebesukkos, just like the shade of the Sukkot. Shu tachas, which is under hatanra, the Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippur, the tenor, the rock, the intense Elokim energy that's Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. V'yesh loymar, now we're not done yet. That pin the Pinchas. Now we can say, so till now we just had in the word, till now we only, in Pinchas, in the word Pinchas, we only, in his act, we had both the Gevura and the kindness. In his action. The action was a reward for his Gevura, for his zealousy. But in his name, we only had its Gematria Yitzchak. It's only Gevura. We did have that Chas means he was sympathetic. That's why he acted with a pin. Now it's interesting, in English, pin means also something that you can stab with, a pin. It's Gevura. That's my own connection. The Yashleima we can say. But now he's going to find that the name, this is so good, that the name Pinchas itself, he wants to say like this, the Pei Yud Nun, that's the Gevura. The Ches and the Samach, that's the Chesed. Why? Because the first two letters of the word Chesed is what? It's a no-brainer. I'm sure anybody could have figured this out. The first two letters of the word Chesed is Ches Samach. Oh, if his name is Pin, and then Ches Samach, so you see the Chesed is there as well. From the Ches Samach. The Yashleima Pin the Pinchas Upchin is Gevurais. The pin of the Pinchas is the Gevura. And more than that, it's not only pin, because pin is Purkana Yeshua, but also because the main root of the word pin is pen. Now, pen is a warning. Torah says, Hishamru lachem, be careful, pen yifta lavavchem, maybe lest your hearts go astray. Sages say whenever it says the word pen, it's a warning. Pen means a losase. The word pen always means, in English, a pen means a writing device, a pen. But in Hebrew, the word pen, the sages say whenever it says pen in the Torah, it's a prohibited commandment. Even if it doesn't look like, when it says lo, it means not, but pen also means it's a prohibitive commandment. Now, all prohibited commandments come from the left side, come from God's Gevura. Ki pen mitzvahs lo yisaseh. Pen is a lo saseh, and not a prohibitive commandment. Pen is Gevurais, Gevura, keniskala, as we said before. V'achar kach, but afterwards, after the pen, what do you have? V'achar chas, chasamach, hu b'chenas chesed, because the first two letters of chesed is. And the sages say that what does chesed mean? Chas dalid. Dalid is the poor man, because dalid comes from the word dalid. Dal means poor. Chas means having pity on the poor man. So it's interesting. The main pity, the main kindness is not in the dalid. The dalid is the recipient of the kindness, but the bestower of the kindness, he is the ches and the sama. So in Pinchas, you don't need the dalid, because the dalid is not the kindness. The dalid is to who the kindness is going to. But the ches and the samach, that's the kindness itself of the kindness. Chas, dalas. Okay. So you got Sukkot there, and you got Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. But we still need what? Shmini Atzeres. You need the intimacy. You need the Yesod element. What does Hashem give him as a gift besides kahuna? Hinini nosen lo, I'm giving him brisi shalom. So first of all, bris, which is the covenant, which is also related to a bris milah. That's why Pinchas is Elio. He comes to every bris milah. Bris milah is on the reproductive organ, which is in Yesod. The whole idea of bris milah is Yesod. But what does Hashem say? I'm giving him as brisi shalom, my covenant of peace. Peace is the harmony between two entities. That's Yesod. Peace is, shalom is Yesod. So, I give him my peace of my covenant of peace. Which is Yesod, Anikra Bris. Yesod is called Bris. Shalom, and that's peace. Hamesim Shalom bebayis damalchus. Everybody knows there's something called Shalom bayis. Shalom bayis means peace and harmony in the home. Peace and harmony in the home really means, Shalom bayis means Shalom with the woman. Because bayis is the woman. Malchus is called bayis. Shalom bayis means to be peace with the woman. Shalom is the male element and bayis is the female. The minister of peace, the Zohar says that's the level of tzaddik. Now Yesod is called tzaddik. That's why Yosef, from all the saintly people, Yosef gets the name tzaddik. Tzaddik is primarily reserved for someone who's holy when it comes to sexual matters. That's called tzaddik. So Yosef, who is was the holy, which is sexual element, is Yesod. Fine. So therefore, when God gives him the covenant of peace, what is that? That's Shmini Atzeres. That's the unity of Shmini Atzeres. So Pinchas has got the whole rundown, and exactly in the order. Rosh Hashanah, V'yesh lo Imar, but we can say, now he's going to find all three in the name. Till now in the name we had Gevura and Ches. Pin was the pin. Remember that? My little one. Pin is the Gevura, and Ches is the Chesed. He's going to show you what. We can say like this. Pin the Pinchas. The pin of Pinchas is Mashekina, this that he had vengeance, Vayachaper, and he brought atonement. That's all inside the pin. Kamoi. So that corresponds to all Gevura. It's like from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. It's Kina and Kapara and atonement. Kamoi es Zroya Kachai, corresponding with God's left hand, which is only Gevura. The left hand that comes beneath our head from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. That's the pin. Ches, but the Ches, we were saying that Ches and Samach is Chesed, but you can learn it differently. The Ches is going back to Chiya's Ches, and to which other Ches? The Ches of the word Chasaf, which he said earlier, is all related to the 8th day. Ches is 8, the 8th day, Shmini Atzeres, which is the idea of Yesod. So the Ches of Pinchas is not Chesed, the Ches of Pinchas is Yesod. Chesu k'mo Shmini Atzeres Yom HaChes, the 8th day. And that's the level of Brisi Shalom, my covenant of peace. That's the covenant of peace we said before, is the Yesod element. Samach is related to the kindness. The only thing we're missing now is Sukkot. Well, Sukkot starts with Samach. Samach is Rosh Hashanah Sukkah, is the Rosh Hashanah of Sukkah, which is the time of love. That's the right hand embracing. And that's really what a Samach is. A Samach is an embrace. An embrace of it. And that's the last thing that happened to Pinchas, that he became a Kohen. So these are three things. There's the action that he did was Kinei, he did vengeance, Vayachaper, and he brought atonement, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. The Ches of the name Pinchas is that which Hashem gave him Brisi Shalom. He gave him the power of Yesod. He made him the peacemaker. And by the way, it says that what is Eliyahu Navi coming to do when Moshiach comes? He's only coming to make peace, it says. He's not coming to judge. He's coming to bring peace to the world. Eliyahu is coming last, his shalom ba'olam, to make peace. Barisi shalom. That's and the last thing is Hashem says, and you know what else I'm giving him? I'm giving him kahuna, I'm making him a kohen. So what's that? That's sukkahs. That's the bris kahuna sailam, the bris of kahuna sailam. Now, only question is, how come it's then in this order? In his name, think about it, in his name, it's not exactly in the right order. Because you have the pin element is the Gevura, the Ches element is the Yesod, which is Shmini Atzeres, and the Samach is Sukkot. If it's going to be in the right order, it should be Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, of course, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeres. The answer is because Yesod is in between the right hand and the left hand. Yesod is in the middle of the body. We say Yumina Usmala, the right, Ubeine in the Friday night Zemirot. Yumina Usmala, the right and the left, Ubeine Yukala, and in between comes the bride for the unity. Now, where do we find that? Because Yesod is in the middle. Sages tell us that if a person wants to synchronize their home to be consistent with the entire energy flow, they should put their bed, primarily the bed in which they're going to have intimacy on, that bed should be between north and south. Meaning you can put your bed in two positions, east and west, but you should put it between north and south. That means that the head of the bed should be, let's say, north, and the feet of the bed should be, let's say, south. Not from east to west, but from north to south. So why is that? Because north is Gevura, cold north. South is Chesed, it's kindness. The bed is where the unity happens, Yesod takes place. The Yichud takes place between the right and the left, between the north and the south, between the Chesed and the Gevura. In the middle column, which is Tiferet, which is the harmony of both, that's where the union takes place. That's where Yesod is. So he says, Va'yichud, and the Yichud, Sha'al Hamita, that's on the bed, Hu Bein Tzafain L'Darim, is between north and south. Be'emtza, in the middle. That's the reason why, Mashe Brisi Shalom, that the covenant of peace, Kasov Hu Be'emtza. In the verse, first of all, in the name Pinchas, it's going to be in the middle. The Ches is after the pin, but before the Samach. But also in the verse, it's that way. First, it starts off with Pinchas's actions. Then it says, God says, the first thing he says to Moshe, tell him I'm giving him Brisi Shalom. I'm giving my covenant of peace. And then he says, then he's going to have kahuna. It starts with Gevura, Yesod, and then Chesed. Tzafain, middle, and Daraim. And in the name Pinchas, it's also that way. So everything is actually perfect. Shalom u'be'emtza, bein bekana yeskenasi, between the vengeance, b'chenes Tzafain Gevura, which is the north, lebein bris kehinas olam, to the kahuna, which is the south, b'chenes Daraim Chesed, which is south and kindness. That's what, because I'm a Kohen, I live on South Detroit Street. Chein, Ches, the Pinchas, u'be'emtza. Now the Ches of the word Pinchas is also in the middle, between the pin and the Samach. Pin the Samach. Come on. I'm asking you, is this human? Was this a human being who figured all this out? That's what I don't understand. How do you open up a Zohar and read it and suddenly have these downloads? And you know when he wrote this? When he was in exile. He didn't have what to eat, didn't have what, his wife had to go out and make him herbs. But all he wanted was to be able to write she made him ink so he could jot down quickly some of his, when he was learning the Zohar, he jotted down footnotes. And this is our Rebbe's father, so then you can understand why his son is the Rebbe. It gives you a little bit of of an insight of who we're dealing with over here. And based on this, we'll all understand Reb Chia is quiet the whole time. When Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Lazar are talking about Pinchas, Reb Chia is quiet. You know why? Because Reb Chia is like Pinchas. Why? Because Chia in his name, think about it, also has, what did we say Chia has? Let's go back to the beginning of the whole lesson. The Chetz of Chia is Yesod, Shmini Atzeres. The Yud of Chia is the first Yud is the 10 days from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. The Yud Aleph is the 11 days of kindness. So Chia is exactly the same like Pinchas. That's why in the Zohar, Parshas Pinchas, it's Reb Chia, but he doesn't get into the conversation about Pinchas. He brings up, after they finish talking about Pinchas, he brings up, tells me the secret about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And they relate to him, which is the secret of who he is. Awesome. Oh, that's what I told you. Who's Pinchas' father? Pinchas ben Elazar. So who does Reb Chia turn to ask this whole thing? He turns to Elazar, because Chia has a connection to Elazar, just like Pinchas is a son of Elazar. Pinchas ben Elazar. Pinchas is the son of Elazar. Al derech zekan, the same as over here. Reb Chia, who kamei Pinchas, who's like Pinchas, Shal Shalasai asks his question. B'hayoyim shel Rosh Hashanah Shmini Atzeres, in the days from Rosh Hashanah until Shmini Atzeres, hanirmazim b'shmai Chia, that are hinted to in the name Chia canal. Vehem gam kim shaichem lePinchas, and they have a connection to Pinchas as well. Ka'amar b'chala gimel dvarim. We showed you how in Pinchas all these three things are there in Pinchas. Mashakinai ve'yachaper, how he has this whole rundown of this whole 21-day period all in his name. And this that was given to him kahuna. And this that he was given the covenant of peace. So who did he ask this from? Reb Elazar dafka. He asked this from Reb Elazar. Shual derech Elazar ben Aaron. This is the same like Elazar the son of Aaron. Because Elazar, by the way, the Elazar of the Zohar has a relationship with Elazar, the son of Aaron, like he explains in another passage on the Zohar elsewhere. It's not just that they share the same name. They actually have a lot in common. Elazar, the son of Aaron HaKohen, and the Elazar of the Zohar. For Rebbe Elazar has Shivai, and Rebbe Elazar answered him and gave him the secret. So he became his father. Because when you teach someone Torah, it's like you become their father. He became his father in this. You call him Alamed as Ben Chaveroi Torah. Anybody who teaches the son of his friend Torah, Ki'ilu Yoldo, is as if he gave birth to him. Chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek. With this, he completes his pirush on this passage of the Zohar. Now, I shared this with you randomly. From his entire book, I could have picked any piece. I just went over here. I said, oh, this looks interesting. And I grabbed this one. There's hundreds of these. Now, most of his writings we don't even have. Can you imagine that? From where he wrote all his life is hidden somewhere in Russia. The KGB took it away. What monsters? We don't have it. We have a tiny bit that his wife managed to smuggle out, and this is what this is the little bit we have. I mean, we can keep busy here for a couple of years learning this, but there's 4 volumes, and I just learned 2 pages. But this is mind blowing. Wow. May the merit of this great tzaddik bring us Moshiach now. That's the bottom line.